Hello there, you're welcome back. I am Akirili Oladimiji Philip. On today's edition, I'll be introducing a segment which is very essential in your paper 2 GCSE biology. So that segment is inheritance, variation, and evolution. Now this segment is very broad actually, so I'm going to explain and show you the different subsections that contains different lectures here now. So the content of this section will be, the first one is going to be reproduction, then we'll look at variation and evolution, then we'll look at development of understanding of genetics and evolution, then we'll look at classification of living things. So we have 4 sections or 4 segments on this section either way. Then each of them then has the lectures. So under reproduction, you look at the differences between sexual and asexual reproduction, meiosis, then advantages and disadvantages of sexual and asexual reproduction. Now we look at DNA and genome, what it means, the structure of DNA, the genetic inheritance, that's like talking about Mendelian genetics sort of. Now we'll look at inherited disorders, all right, then sex determination. Then under variation and evolution, we look at what variation means, meaning of evolution, then selective breeding, genetic engineering, then cloning. All right. Then the third segment, we're looking at the theory behind evolution, the speciation, what it means, the understanding of genetics proper, evidence of evolution, fossils, extinction, resistant bacteria. Then the last part will be classification of living things, which is just basically us classifying living things. All right, so we'll be starting off with the first section, the first segment of the section, which is reproduction, and that's the one that has the following. So the first one we are starting now will be sexual and asexual reproduction. All right, now basically from what you can see here, you can see two clips there. The one on the right talks about living things. This one here talks about organisms reproducing asexually, and this other one around here talks about sperm and egg fusing together, and these are bacterial cells reproducing basically. So let's get started proper. So sexual reproduction, generally when you talk about reproduction, it means that organisms giving birth to young ones, having a younger one, so to say, or having offspring as it were. However, if this reproduction came about from two different gametes fusing, like we had in the first slide here, like as it is here, the fertilization part, that is sexual reproduction. Then on the other hand, if a single organism such as this split into different components of itself, that's asexual reproduction. Now let me get this right. Now when we talk about sexual reproduction, students often think that it has to do with sexual intercourse, which are otherwise called coitus. No, it doesn't have to. In fact, sometimes it doesn't even have to involve two living organisms. It could just be one organism that has the two gametes in itself. For example, tapeworm has, each segment of tapeworm has the testes and the ovary. So that means it could actually fertilize itself. So you don't even need two different sexes of that organism. So the point in sexual reproduction simply means two gametes coming together, whether it is done by two organisms or by the same organism. But the hallmark, the major thing there is for us to remember the fact that the two different gametes comes together. All right, and the key word here is that one single organism most times is the one that splits into smaller version of itself, or to make offsprings. So that's what we have here. So this is asexual reproduction happening here. You can see just few of the bacteria that started dividing, then kept multiplying like that. Two organisms didn't come together. Two gametes, I mean to say, didn't come together. But this second one here shows the sperm cell going in to fertilize the egg cell. those are two different gametes forming that will lead to formation of a new offspring, as it were. Now, so let's talk more about sexual reproduction. Now, it says it's a process involving the fusion of the nuclei of two gametes, which are sex cells, to form zygotes. Now, when we said fusion, now let me get this right. Let's say this is an egg cell with the nucleus there. In human has 23 chromosomes. Then the sperm cell in the man has nucleus, has 23 chromosomes in it. So what happened is these two of them form something that looks like this afterwards. The two nuclei will then fuse 23. So that's actually like fertilization. That's I use the word fertilized egg here, because the nucleus of the sperm cell moves into that of the egg cell to fuse in it. So this will become the zygote that will then develop to form the offspring, as it were. Now, the gamete of animals are the sperm cells and egg cells in animals, and the gamete of flowering plants are pollen and egg cells, basically. All right. So what you have here is just an illustration of what sexual reproduction is. Then now I need to remember this thing. There's this we have two types of cell division, basically, majorly, which is meiosis and mitosis. Now, meiosis is majorly for sexual reproduction. Let me tell you how it applies. All cells in our body as humans, let me use myself as an example. All cells in my body as human will reproduce by mitosis. Mitosis, except for reproductive cells. Please, I didn't say reproductive organs. No, reproductive cells, which means in the case of a man, it's going to be sperm cell. In the case of a woman, it's going to be egg cell. Now, when I said reproductive cell, I mean just the cell, not the organs producing them. So which means that the testes that produce the sperm cell in man will still produce by mitosis. The ovary that produces egg in women or females will also reproduce by mitosis. But the cells they produce, which is egg and sperm cell, will reproduce by what? Meiosis. Now, let me tell you what that means in a minute. The reason why it does that is this. The point is, all cells in our body has 46 chromosomes. Sorry, 46, I mean to say 46 chromosomes. Now, when the sperm cell, the cell that will form sperm cell, we call it spermatogonia, reproduced by meiosis, is going to first form two cells like this, having 46 chromosomes each. That was because this will photocopy into, is going to replicate. If you've seen my lecture on cell division, you understand what I mean by that. For a cell to divide, it's going to first replicate its chromosome in two places. So one came here, the other one came here. Then each of these cells will further divide again, but this time around without replicating. So we are going to have divided by 2. So 23 chromosome comes here, 23 chromosome comes here, 23 chromosome comes here, 23 chromosome comes here, 23 chromosome comes here. So at the end of meiosis, you're going to have 4 cells having 23 chromosomes. That's going to be half of what their parent had initially. This is very important, because if it were not so, that means we're going to be having, if not for this meiosis, it would have been 46 chromosomes from sperm cell, 46 chromosomes from egg cell. That would be terrible. That's going to be 92. That doesn't make sense. But by meiosis, it has reduced it to 23, so that we can have 23 from sperm cell plus 23 from egg cell to form 46, which is the normal chromosome number for each cell in humans. So it is meiosis that helps to restore the number of chromosomes, or that helps to reduce the number of chromosomes in our cells to make it fit for sexual reproduction. So it says here, this helps to reduce the number of chromosomes to what is suitable for fertilization. All right. So this is what I just talked about. This 2n means that it is double set of chromosome, like 2 sets of chromosomes like that. But when you have n here, it means it's going to be just 1 set like that. That's what it means. It means haploid. Any cell that has just 1 set of chromosomes is called haploid. Those that have 2 sets are called diploid. So this one was 46. It's going to be 23 on the right, 23 on the left, while this is going to just be 23 that way. All right, moving on. So the next one is to elaborate on asexual reproduction. Now, like I said earlier, it is a process resulting in a genetically identical offspring from one parent, basically. So it's just one parent that forms them, and it's going to be exactly the way the parent is. That of asexual reproduction is going to be a bit different because you are mixing 2 different gametes that have different component or different characteristics to some extent, so it's going to be mixed. All right, when we move on further, when we get to meiosis, I'm going to explain this further. So asexual reproduction does not involve sex cells or fertilization. Only one parent is required so there is no fusion of gametes and no mixing of genetic materials. As a result, the offsprings are genetically identical to the parents and to each other. They are clones of each other. So this is an example where we talked about each of the bacterium there will look exactly the same. You can see them looking alike. All right, basically. So this is a cell. Sorry, that's a clip from that's a cell divided by asexual reproduction or mitosis, basically. So let me show you now. So mitosis is related to asexual reproduction, while meiosis is related to sexual reproduction. You have to remember those 2 together. So mitosis is to asexual reproduction as meiosis to sexual reproduction. So mitosis is involved in asexual reproduction. Mitosis through asexual reproduction is used for repairing damaged tissues as well as for growth. So in humans now, if you have a cut or you have a wound healing, the cells there are going to grow by mitosis. So you can say mitosis is some books even regard mitosis as asexual reproduction, really, because you are just splitting the cell into 2. So in humans and animals, what makes us get bigger in size is mitosis. So the cells kept increasing in number like that, and the cells are going to be identical to each other. Now, one thing you need to remember is this. Like I said, for tissue repair, this is starfish. Basically, you can see it is being cut, then it regenerates. Now, let me tell you what I mean really. Now, this particular one you are seeing here, let me tell you what happened. Now, this part was what was left. Then from this single part that was left, this other part grew from it. So they can regenerate by asexual reproduction. All right, so this is very, very important. So it's though we have other forms of asexual reproduction, which isn't just mitosis, but for the relevance of this, I just give this for you to understand. All right. All right, so that will be all for now. So we're going to meet in the next class talking about the advantages and disadvantages of sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Thanks for being with me on the lecture. Bye bye.